For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Yeah, well,
Here we are.
It's the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast.
I'm glad you remembered
A very
correct name, because the last time I
name.
screwed the name up the last
You
time.
often don't get the name right. And
I often don't get the name right.
it's hard to remember.
It's our podcast.
We came up with it so that people would remember it, let alone us.
Such an important
but
topic.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So that's it. I am the Dave Loomis, and this is
I'm one of the Steve Millers.
one of the Steve Millers,
You know?
but he's also Kelly's dad.
Kelly's dad, marketing gunslinger. Thank you. And
Yeah,
and we're both authors of amazing books.
that is true. And Steve has another book coming out soon, and I have yet to write my next one. But it's in here. It's up here.
It is? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we have a great topic this time, which I think people will appreciate. I'm sorry to say that people would actually still appreciate this, because
I think so.
it's about COVID and what is the best advice that we gave some of our clients during that time. And one would have thought that would be history, if not ancient history by now, but it sort of seems to keep rearing its head, right?
It's it's just like an old girlfriend that just won't go away.
Steve said that, not me, but yeah, it's a lot like that. But I can go first, because I've got something
Absolutely
sort of interesting on this.
I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, and I looked back at this before we got going here to see what the date was, and I think the date was around April 4th of 2020 when I published a blog post. So it was 3 weeks officially into the lockdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you remember that time, it was kind of a shock at the beginning to a lot of people and a lot of companies, especially who weren't necessarily set up for work at home. First of all, they weren't necessarily set up for the absence of person-to-person contact.
Right.
Lots of things. They also were very hesitant about how to communicate to their customers. That's what I kept hearing. So, like, very early days, and actually still to this
I think
day.
I think they were confused about how to communicate. But the main third thing that I would add to your first two is that they were that a lot of people, high percentage of people, very uncomfortable in this platform.
On Zoom, doing something remotely like this.
Right.
They had dirty laundry in their background.
Yep.
It was they weren't put together the way a lot of people are now.
Right.
But I wrote a blog post, and it was about communication during COVID. So how do you communicate to your customers? And when I talked to a lot of the people that I know and thought about it a lot, and talked to my clients, I came up with this phrase, which was sort of funny, but shoot from the hips. And hips is all caps. It's an acronym, and it stands for be honest, informative, personal, and supportive.
Wow, that's great.
And I gave examples of all of those. It was because one of the reasons I came up with this, I was still getting spam. And I was still getting, sort of those LinkedIn, sequences that I knew were AI driven, and all these other sort of sales pitches that I maybe would have gotten a couple months before and thought nothing of, but they seemed highly inappropriate during that time. And so, but I also saw people overdoing it, like being like way too sappy, almost, and apologetic, and we had to sort of do business but be more sensitive. So I had examples of those. I tacked on at the end, maybe if it's appropriate, something fun or inspirational, just to lighten. Sometimes that was appropriate and sometimes it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of kept my eye out for, is anybody doing this? Is anybody doing it well? And I came across Airstream trailers. And
those guys are great.
They are absolutely amazing. And if anybody's listening, just go to the Airstream website. It doesn't matter if you want one of these things or not. You probably will after you go there. But sign up for their email newsletter and see what you get. And it's just so interesting. They're masters of content. And they literally, after I'd written this, I looked at what they had sent me, and it had tips on work from home, which was a very honest kind of thing and helpful. It was informative, disinfecting, how to disinfect your trailer. I mean, okay, it's not the funnest thing in the world, but it's informative. Personal, there was a really heartfelt letter from the CEO. Supportive, they had all these links to incredibly helpful resources, not just Airstream resources, all sorts of resources that people could use. And then at the end, they had this Zoom link that showed a Zoom background of inside the trailer that they could, a nice trailer with a beautiful background that you could use as your Zoom background, which was kind of fun. And I thought, oh my God, they just literally went down my list and nailed it.
So again, what's the list again?
So it's honest, informative, personal, supportive. Yeah. It was people were
tremendous. That's tremendous.
Don't hide what's going on. I mean, if you're having a supply problem, say you're having a supply problem. I mean, nobody's going to hold you necessarily to blame for that. We're all in the same boat type thing.
Yeah, everybody's having that problem.
Yeah,
no question about it. Yeah.
And how about you, Steve? What did you?
I'm in that same vein, kind of same direction, but a little bit of a pirouette.
Pivot.
I don't use the word pivot. It's just
I love that word.
It's overworked.
I just love using it because you don't like.
One of my best friends, Sam Silverstein, is the guy who has the book Pivot out.
Are you asking him to rename it Pirouette?
I was actually interviewing him on a program when the book was released in the middle of COVID, and I said, you need to rename your book. No, what I came up with was that I had I heard Tom Peters once say, was a blinding flash of the obvious. Mm-hmm. And that was a realization that before COVID, we kind of had and actually kind of made efforts to keep our professional lives and our personal lives separate. I mean, not 100%, but as much as, so like, for example, like if you're young, you have young kids at home, well, all of a sudden everybody's at home. Right. But before that, before COVID, before that, it would sort of be like you would get up in the morning and you've got your home hat on, and you're helping the kids get ready for school. You're feeding them. You're getting yourself dressed. maybe exercise and do that type of stuff. And then you get the kids off to school, and then you go out and you get in your car and you go to the office. And when you get to the office, you now take your home hat off and you put your office hat on, and you go in, and it's a different way of looking at things. Okay. And what occurred to me was that because of COVID, and the farther we got into COVID, after several months of being in COVID, it occurred to me that what was happening, and what I think is going to continue to happen, is that these two separate worlds are going like this. Mm-hmm. And they are now overlapping tremendously. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the way the people, and if we think in terms of our buyers, our prospects and our customers, is that they see the world differently now. Their priorities are different now. People who are still working at home, or who have been given the option to continue working at home, like my daughter was, that it's changed the dynamics of our days, and as a result, we now have different types of challenges and different types of issues that maybe we didn't have before. And when I realized that, I started to go out and like I say, kind of along the same lines of what you were talking about, the supportive part, and that is that I said, we need to be more empathetic. That's what we need to be. And so I kind of just started saying to all of my clients, we need to start practicing empathy marketing in a very strong way. Now, what did I mean by that? Well, what I meant by that was that our marketing had to get more personal. And like you have the word, interesting, right? Was that
honest, informative,
informative. Okay. So you had like informative. Okay. Well, people are going to, the days are jumbled now. Okay. There's no demarcation line between going to the office and going home.
Right.
And even for the people that are going to the office, it's just changed. Right. And so what I said was, what we need to do is we need to recognize, and one of the things that I've always said about marketing is that, in my opinion, the purpose of marketing is to be on the mind of the prospect when the prospect is ready to buy. We don't always know when they're ready to buy. So we want to make sure that we are on their mind. But with empathy marketing, I felt like we needed to be much more supportive of them, like you say, and be much more helpful in their personal lives that would also then impact their professional lives, maybe their productivity or something like that. So like I sat down with my clients, we would be doing these brainstorming sessions on Zoom, mm-hmm. and we started to come up with ideas where a number of my clients, and we kind of started with the theme that we would have with the customers and prospects was sort of a, when you're ready to talk, we'll be here. Okay. But in the meantime, we want to help you. And so for the big moose that we would go, the big whales people talk about, good customers and things, like we would send housekeepers out to clean their homes.
Yeah.
We would hire landscapers to go take care of their yards. And because these were things that still needed to be done, but because of this overwhelming overlap, time was kind of getting away from everybody. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so my clients did that, and the response was absolutely off the charts.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, people couldn't believe it, and as things started to kind of churn ahead a little bit, they found it was easier to reach people because they practiced this, and people would take their calls. or they would set up a Zoom with them or something like that. And it was a tremendous effort on all my clients, the clients who did it, and we're continuing it to this day, because we're just even though we're sort of seeing things getting back, what does that mean? I think we're in a permanent change, another permanent change.
We probably are. We're definitely on the same wavelength now, because my follow-up a few weeks later from that original, the shoot from the hips blog post, was an article called "Why We Need Compassionate Marketing Now and Always." So I mean, it's basically really similar. And one of my clients,
we are apparently separated at birth. I'm not exactly sure what.
A different mother. And so one of my clients, and I was interviewing like one of their customers for a research project, and she told me that the rep opened his house to her when he heard that there was a hurricane in her area and that she was going to be evacuating. And that's the kind of thing that you don't forget when you're, and she never forgot it.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're talking about is, it may be B2B, and okay, maybe there's more logic in it. Maybe you have a budget. Maybe there's procurement involved. Maybe there's a team of people making a decision on whatever product you sell. But guess what? There's still a human being. There's still a human being that makes that decision.
Yep.
And as you say, there's probably one dominant human being.
Probably one, but it's still human to human.
Yeah.
I've always kind of disliked that concept of business to business. It's
H2H.
H2H, yeah.
H2H.
H2H, yeah, exactly right. And regardless of whether they are the end user, of a consumer product, or if they are a purchaser of a multi-million-dollar piece of machinery, it doesn't matter. It's still people doing business with people. So I think that I think that those companies who like, you talk about, you say compassionate marketing, and I say empathy marketing. That's what we're talking about. And I think the more that we spend time, and I've always said, see, it's like when they talk about ABM, nowadays, I'm like, oh, you mean big, you mean key client?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
You mean targeting specific companies and then building a relationship with identifiable individuals in those companies?
Yeah, what a radical concept.
Is that what you mean?
What a radical concept that
crazy.
is.
That's crazy.
I was only doing, and I'm sure you were too 40 years ago.
So this is probably a few hundred years old. I mean, if not longer, because
come on. Yeah. So like back in the days when I would I would have a handful of big targets, and I knew those companies were the ones that I wanted to work with. But then, I would then have to find the person on the inside. Okay. And then that person, is a person.
Yes.
They have a life. And the more you knew about them, and I watched my dad do this too. He would, the more he connected with people, the better, the more successful he was. And that's really what this is all about. And so
right, Howard Marge and the kids, and I don't care if you remember it or you write it down in your notepad or it's in your CRM system. I have a lot of those kind of notes about people because I have a lot of contacts and a lot of friends that, hey, if I don't remember their kids' names or I don't remember certain things about them, but if you bring them up, it's a nice thing to do as a friend.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I had a really good client a number of years ago that, and I went to New York, and he was based outside of New York City, and I went to New York City to, for a meeting with him, and I knew about he and his kids. And I'd heard all about him and everything like that. And he talked about that he was going to take his kids to Madison Square Garden to go see the Ringling Brothers Circus.
Yeah.
And he told me far enough in advance that I went and did some research, and sure enough, Ringling Brothers at that time had a special VIP package where you could pay to go. You would go down in the opening of the show, and you could ride in one of the cars that was riding through, and they would give you like a hat or something, to kind of blend in. And so you could ride in that, and you could get your picture taken with all the performers and stuff like that.
Liability insurance.
I bought that, for his kids, and they were practically crying afterwards about how much fun they had,
That's awesome.
So, we're all still doing this. We're all still people.
Yeah.
And if we can help people and stuff, that would be great.
I have one more thing, which is
okay. And then we got to wrap this up again.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. No, you go right ahead. Yeah.
It's different than what we were talking about, but I do have a client that, and a couple clients who basically just scoured their websites and redid their calls to action. And the reason why, we did that was because we said, okay, they aren't going to be coming in contact directly with our salespeople anymore, and not in person. There's going to be a lot more people online. There were a lot already. But now there's going to be more, and there's still going to be more. That's not going away. So we looked through it, and we just sort of like stress tested, all the calls to action. We doubled or tripled the amount of calls to action, and we changed them. Some of them were like start a quote. That was wildly successful, which it sounds like something you should have had before anyway, but not everybody thinks in those terms.
What did they have before? What might have been?
Contact us.
Just contact us.
Contact us.
Yeah.
And everybody's got contact us or
for a quote. Contact us for a quote. I hate that.
Yeah.
I've always hated that. So
there's different things that you can do and try. And that's the thing. Now you can try things and measure them. And if they don't work, don't do them anymore. If they work, do more of that.
That's right. When it works, keep doing it.
Not that complicated. And neither is
that's great.
Neither
great
is
advice.
H2H, the H2H marketing. That's not complicated. It's actually easier. If you care, you have to really care. You have to actually care. You
have to give a crap about
you do.
About
you
the
really
people
do.
that you do business with and the people you want to do business with.
Yeah.
And you can't be phony, and it's like the H in yours, honest, you have to be honest,
Yeah.
And so, no question about it. So, all right, well, take us home.
Another great episode of the B2B or H2H Marketing and Sales Podcast.
That's right.
And this has been the Dave Loomis and
one of the Steve Millers. So, I'll start singing pretty soon, and
we can't wait.
No, can't wait. Yes, you can.
Fly like an eagle.
That's right.
All right.
So
thanks
again.
Good to see you. And
if you like us, click the like button.
Yeah, like us if you like us.
Absolutely. Appreciate that a lot.
Share it with others.
See you next time.
Okay. See you, Steve.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing. Keep on selling.